Hello, everybody. Thank you very much. I always appreciate you. I'm Orlando Ruiz Jr. Welcome to another classic movie review. This is my review of a classic 1980s buddy cop action movie that came out in 1989 that stars two of the biggest movie stars, Sylvester Stallone and Kurt Russell. The name of this classic is Tango and Cash. In the film, Sylvester Stallone plays Ray Tango. Kurt Russell plays the role of Gabriel Cash. They're both the two top cops in LA. They're both rival cops that work from different precincts and dress differently, have different styles. Kurt Russell is the t-shirt and flannel shirt type of guy. Sylvester Stallone is the kind of guy that wears glasses, wears a suit and tie, and plays the stock market. Separately, our two hero cops are having major success with these big drug busts. They make the headlines and they attract the wrong kind of attention from the big bad guy in town, this big crime boss by the name of Perret, played by the legendary Jack Palance. This movie does have some pretty sweet 1980s action. For me, it's always a lot of fun to see Stallone taking down bad guys, or see Kurt Russell using a gun with a laser scope, or him running around with a machine gun shooting bad guys, or fighting bad guys with Stallone back to back. You got this awesome scene in the movie with our two main heroes driving around this big dirt maze in an armored RV from hell, as one of them calls it, that has machine guns and nitrous oxide boosters, and all these monster trucks are going after them, and it's pretty fun. During the prison scenes, there's also some pretty good action. There's a big fight scene with Sylvester Stallone and Kurt Russell beating up a bunch of inmates, and there's also a pretty fun prison escape sequence where Stallone goes up against the maniac cop himself, Robert Zadar, who earlier in the film, Stallone's character calls him Conan, which is kind of a jab at Arnold Schwarzenegger because the year prior in Twins, Arnold's character pointed at a Rambo 3 poster kind of mocking Stallone's muscles. And so the rivalry was definitely real. Now, although I do enjoy this movie and I do find it very entertaining because, after all, it does feature two of my favorite actors of all time, Sylvester Stallone and Kurt Russell, who together do have great chemistry and are so much fun to watch. And so, yeah, there is a lot to like about this movie, especially all the Kurt Russell stuff, because when you get Kurt Russell, he's going to be charming and funny, and he's going to have these great one-liners, and all that stuff is there in spades. But it's the Stallone stuff and a lot of his dialogue that doesn't really work about half the time. Sometimes it's okay, and sometimes it's very cringy. I think the screenwriter wrote a good character for Stallone to play, but in the end, it doesn't really amount to anything because the character is given such cheesy and corny dialogue that the humor just doesn't land. At this point in Sylvester Stallone's career, things were kind of on the decline. He had his biggest year in the 80s in 1985 with the release of Rocky IV and Rambo 2 that year, and then the following year in 86, he had a modest hit with Cobra, but then starting in 87, things started to go downhill with Over the Top not making a lot of money, and then Rambo 3 in 88 underperformed at the box office. In the end, this movie ended up being kind of a win for Stallone. Like 1986's Cobra, it was a modest hit and made respectable box office. It was a big hit on cable, a big hit on video, but with the critics, that's a different story. When this movie came out, the critics of the time did not like this movie. And when I watch it, I get it. It's not on the level of something like Lethal Weapon or 48 Hours because the plot in this movie is very generic, very by the numbers. The dialogue in the movie can be very corny, very cheesy, even for an 80s action movie, to the point where it borders on parody of the genre. At the beginning of the movie, they try to give the Stallone character a cool intro, but it's kind of ruined because it's stolen right out of another movie, a better movie from 1985 starring Jackie Chan, Police Story, the bit where he has the gun pointed at a truck and the guys brake and they go right through the windshield. Stallone's character Tango busts a couple of bad guys and doesn't even read them their Miranda rights. Pretty damn dumb considering if they wanted to, they could lawyer up and walk, but this movie isn't concerned with even the slightest bit of realism, and so you can't take any of this stuff seriously. And you also have a moment where our heroes have this cue sequence right out of a James Bond movie where they hook up with this guy who's a friend of Kurt Russell character who has all these cool gadgets and weapons that, it's straight out of a James Bond movie. And so, yeah, just complete silliness. I mean, I get what they were going for. I think they were trying to go for this Axel Foley, Beverly Hills Cop kind of vibe with having a couple of cops that were very quippy like Axel Foley, but, these guys weren't Eddie Murphy. These guys were Stallone and Russell, and so, Kurt Russell could get away with being quippy and funny because he's kind of a natural comedian, but Stallone was coming off of these Rambo and Cobra. The production of this movie was a nightmare. The original director, Andrei Konchalovski, who directed the 1985 classic Runaway Train, was fired 3 months into production. Supposedly, Konchalovski was going to make a more serious version of this movie that wasn't so overly comedic and over the top, but due to creative differences he had with the producers, John Peters and Peter Guber, they let him go after 3 months and brought on Albert Magnoli, the director of Purple Rain. So the movie got finished with his help, plus the help of Peter MacDonald, the director of Rambo 3. So this movie had a very messy production, and when you watch it, it does show. But that doesn't mean that this movie isn't entertaining as hell. Doesn't mean that this movie isn't tons of fun. And the saving grace in this movie is the team up of Sylvester Stallone and Kurt Russell. These two guys are so much fun to watch together on screen. They make a great duo. Throughout the movie, every now and then our heroes have a little competition thing going on, which is fun to watch, and I also enjoy their back and forth banter and, for the most part, a lot of the dialogue, especially from Kurt Russell. And I do enjoy this little subplot with Kurt Russell trying to date Sylvester Stallone's younger sister, played by a very young and very cute Terry Hatcher, before Desperate Housewives and The Adventures of Lois and Clark. And you also get a brief moment with Kurt Russell in drag that you will never forget, and one of the things that makes this movie a standout. This movie is the very definition of a so bad it's good guilty pleasure kind of a flick that I do recommend. I give it 2.5 stars from 1989. Tango and Cash. Anyone that wants to watch this, I'm sure you can find it on streaming, but those of you that know me, you know I'm a hard copy guy, and since I am a Stallone fan, I got a double feature here of two awesome Stallone movies. And yeah, since this bottom movie was the main focus of this review, I'll bring it in a little closer there for you to see. And yeah, 1989's Tango and Cash, definitely a fun time for action movie fans. I do recommend. Thank you all very much for watching this classic movie review. I always appreciate it. If you're into the classics, if you're into movies, if you're into this kind of thing, if you're new to the channel, subscribe. Hit the bell for notifications on more reviews from me coming out very soon. If you're a returning viewer, thank you very much for your support and all your views. I very much appreciate it. Please don't forget to comment, share, like. It very much helps out the channel. Also, very quickly before I go, I just want to mention that very recently we lost one of the all-time great movie stars, with Mr. Robert Redford passing away at the age of 89, who was in so many great classic films, and I do want to get into a top 10 Robert Redford movies, so look out for that coming out very soon on this channel. So yeah, until then, take care of each other. Till next time, peace out. God bless.